Looks like we've got good connection on Facebook. And so everybody out there, there's not that many people out there, but this will be a video that's going to be up online. We're doing another discussion with the presenters. We've covered a few presenters already. Did Dan Neeser yesterday or last week, I think. We had Joe Andre on already. Now we got Bill Brooks, and we're talking about the Western Section meeting of the International Association of Electrical Inspectors. Bill Brooks is going to be talking about, and we were just talking about this title, interconnected systems. You know, we can elaborate on this a little bit more as we talk about what you're going to talk about, Bill. But why don't you, thanks for doing this with me. I know you're a busy guy, Bill, as we all are. We were just on a task group meeting talking about these topics. So why don't you give your little bit of your background and tell people about yourself before we get into your presentation?
All right. Well, I've been dealing with solar photovoltaic systems for 32 years, working on interconnected systems related to those. And so the interconnected systems part of the code, which actually came out of Article 690 in solar photovoltaic systems way back when and became Article 705, was really trying to deal with systems that were not connected to the grid, that were connected to the grid and were not like things like transfer switch generator systems and things like that. And so we had Article 702 for optional standby systems, but these systems were actually physically and running in parallel with each other. And photovoltaic systems on the small scale, certainly at residential level, were the very first systems ever to be physically interconnected with the utility grid at a residential scale. And there certainly were many industrial and commercial systems in that range, in the very large range, but this brought it down to the very small level. And over the last 30 years, that technology has become a much bigger part of the electrical world and included things like microturbines and fuel cells and wind turbines, as well as PV, and even generators. So we have generators that are connected to inverters that are interconnected that way to facilitate the interconnection of a generator. And so all these different systems can be interconnected through Article 705 right now. And we've made quite a few changes to Article 705. I was involved in a pretty large rewrite of Article 705 in the 2020 code, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we're going to talk about how things get interconnected, because as we get into the future of electricity, we are going to have a lot more on-site power generation going on than we've ever had before. Certainly we've had a lot over the years, but more and more folks are going to see that as a necessity in life, whether it's at the home level or at the commercial level, because we've become so beholden to electricity to keep our lives going, to actually be able to communicate, to be able to be connected to the internet, and of course, with COVID-19, the ability just to physically have meetings. Obviously we're not doing it in person, so we have to do, how are we going to do this? So we've done telephone calls for years, but obviously now we're doing Zoom meetings, we're doing Microsoft Teams, WebEx, you name it. And all those things require internet, they require power, and they require reliability in those systems. And so reliability, resilience is a common term. Those types of things are becoming more and more important. And so then how do we connect these things together? How do we connect them into a building that's got a utility service? How do we do those things? We've had rules for quite a while, but we're having to tweak a lot of those rules and allow for maybe scenarios that were uncommon just a few years ago, which are now becoming very common.
Yeah. PV is changing considerably, Bill, and I know it must be frustrating because the code changes and the National Electrical Code requirements plus adoption, right? So even if the 2020 code's out, but a lot of states or some states still haven't adopted that, and we're already working on 2023. So that can be a challenge from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
That's right. And the article that I wrote for the IAI magazine, which was published back in the March-April edition this year, basically covers the 2014 code through the 2020 code. And we'll talk about all those code sections because we don't have to be in the most recent version of the code. It's certainly helpful, maybe provide some more clarity and things like that. But there's no reason we can't use the rules. Certainly going back to the 2014 code, I was involved heavily in the load side connection revisions that we did in the 2014 code, which allowed us a lot more options on how we could connect sources on the load side of a service disconnecting means. And so those are important aspects that are often confusing because there's a lot of detail there. They're complex because it's really put into an area that it really hasn't been involved with very much, which is two-way power flows within a building. And historically, our power flows have always been one direction. And as we start to think about two-way power flows and interconnecting power sources with one another, it brings up a lot of new issues that really have to be addressed head on. And there's a lot of detail in there. Of course, in 2 hours, we're not going to cover everything, but we're going to give you some of the of how this is done and hopefully set you on the path to learn more about this stuff.
Awesome. And so for those who are out there watching, the links to register for the Western section are down below. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, I don't know, it's to the right, left, up, down, somewhere associated with this link. And those who are on LinkedIn, the registration information will be also a part of the post that's on LinkedIn. And Bill, what I'll do, if you get me the link to your article, I will post that in all of those forums as well. So I'll edit these posts and put the link to that article because that's the stimulus for our conversation at the Western section. So good article. Kudos to you on putting together a really good. You can make those this whole discussion, simplify it for people, and that's going to be huge. So that's could be very, very confusing, when you're now. So let me ask you: are you going to talk a little bit about, and you may or may not, but we have PV, we've got wind, we've got batteries, we've got energy storage systems. All of those things could be connecting into, your house and whatnot. Is that in your discussion or no?
Yeah, we're going to talk about all those things. Energy storage is a whole big area. And so with power outages and intermittent supplies like solar and wind, you have to have energy storage if you want to have backup power. And so that's really an important piece of the process. And energy storage becomes important for a lot of rate programs that utilities may have where they've got time of use rates and things like that. So you may be able to use the battery in that sense as well as for backup power. We just went through the wildfires in California. I'm staring at a black landscape here. Our internet tower got burned down. All the power poles within about a half a mile of my house burned down. And so we were without power source for over a week. And they got power back amazingly quickly. But these are the things that matter, and having to have power sources, having battery power, I can tell you for a fact that all those things become really, really critically important. And they're still important because a lot of the power sources to our internet tower are burned down. So that's not doing so great now. So all these things are all interrelated. And so backup power sources and resiliency and being able to operate in a post-COVID environment, and throughout the West and Midwest, we've got ice storms, we've got tornadoes, all kinds of things that can disrupt the power system.
Wow.
Is making the power system more secure for the individual customer, and that requires some on-site power sources. And that's what we're really getting into here, and how to do that correctly. And there's, of course, the old school way that people have been doing it for 100 years, and there's a lot of new ways that are coming to the fore.
Yeah. And, are you aware that NFPA 99 just made some changes to recognize alternative energy sources as a supply for healthcare environments? Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's been a lot of cases, obviously, in places like Puerto Rico, the power has been out. They've had power problems routinely for the last couple of years, and so those facilities, especially hospitals and all, have been relying heavily on renewables, and we're going to certainly have those things incorporated more and more into hospitals and various care facilities to help augment the power system and microgrids, you name it. There's all kinds of things on out there, and this is the future of electricity. Getting power on a set of power lines from the utility, even though they may, hope that that's the way that electricity is provided indefinitely. It's only one power source. It's a really big one and it's a really important one. But together with other power sources, we can make that very important power source a lot more reliable for the customer with on-site generation. So.
Yep. And I just chuckle at the we're doing a task group together, and it started as the alternative energy task group. And what's the new word now? We're not alternative energy. What are we?
We're advanced energy.
Advanced energy. Yep. The energy solution, right?
Right. And so electricity is what we care about, right? We care about electricity happening and electricity being reliable. And so whatever we need to do to make that happen, and that's really what it comes down to. And it's up to the customer to really make that choice. Mm-hmm. It's the customer is that I can light candles every time the power goes out and be just fine and really not care whether I have social media or the internet or anything else. But if those things really matter to me and they're central to my business or my life, then I've got to do something about it. I'm an American. I can do something about it. And, putting in a second utility service isn't an option for most customers.
That's right.
So having backup power sources, whether as simple as a generator or as complex as multiple power systems working together with energy storage, all those things are on the table, technically available, and getting cheaper and cheaper all the time and becoming more affordable. And when you look at the cost of a loss of or downtime of the internet or your point of sale concerns and things like that, you can justify a fair amount of equipment with some fairly small outages.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So Steve Froming is watching us online. He was just commenting, but your volume is like half of mine, so I corrected your volume. We got Nihad El Sharif out on Facebook, says hey. So we got a few people that jumped in, but Bill, this is going to be available online on our Western Section YouTube site. So you too, Bill, you got to get out there and subscribe to the Western Section. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell. Don't forget, for anybody who's watching, the Western Section meeting is going to occur. It starts the week of the 21st, which is Monday. So September 21st is our first day. We have morning and afternoon sessions, 10 to 12 Eastern, 2 to 4 Eastern in the afternoon. We're going to have a vendor session at lunch from 11:30 to 12:30, and we're going to have a Western Section R&R Ranch in the evenings, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So you're going to want to register and get registered for the whole week. It's probably the most inexpensive CEU credits. We're offering CEU credits through the International Association of the Electrical Inspectors. So, and Bill, I know I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you, because you're 3 hours behind me, so you're still in work hour time. I'm in beer 30 mode right now. So I appreciate it.
And looking forward to our session in a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks a lot, Bill. Thanks for all of you who tuned in. Remember to register, be safe, and stay healthy. I'm going to stop streaming now. You stay on, Bill. So everybody out there, I'll be checking you out, and tune in tomorrow. We're going to have a discussion with Christine. I think it's going to be Chris. Let me just double check. That will be with, Christine Porter is going to talk about her field evaluation program that's going to happen at the Western Section. So thanks, everybody. Stay safe and stay healthy. Signing off.